The timing on this couldn't be better for the Toronto Blue Jays. And if you are not connecting the dots right now, you are missing how perfectly everything is falling into place. We've got massive updates on Edwin Diaz and the Mets situation that completely changes the Blue Jays bullpen pursuit. We've got a blockbuster trade that just dropped last night with serious implications for Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker. And suddenly, Toronto's positioned to capitalize on opportunities nobody saw coming a week ago. Let's start with Edwin Diaz because this is where things get really interesting. The Mets are stalling on contract negotiations with their closer, and that's creating an opening. The Blue Jays need to exploit immediately. According to league sources, contract length is the major sticking point between Diaz and New York. He's reportedly looking for 5 years at around $102 million, while the Mets are thinking more like 3 years. That's a massive gap, and if they can't bridge it, Diaz is hitting the open market for real. The Blue Jays have already met with Diaz at the general manager meetings in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago, which tells you everything about their interest level. Ken Rosenthal confirmed Toronto is actively pursuing him, and now, with the Mets apparently stuck in negotiations, the path is clearing. This isn't some backup plan. This is a legitimate chance to land one of the best closers in baseball, a guy who just posted a 1.63 ERA and dominated the entire season. Ross Atkins has been clear about wanting to upgrade the bullpen, and Ben Nicholson-Smith has said multiple times that bullpen help is a top priority this offseason alongside starting pitching. Jeff Hoffman was supposed to be the closer, but after what happened in the playoffs, including giving up that home run to Miguel Rojas Tejeras, obvious questions about whether he's built for that role long term. Atkins even said publicly that Hoffman isn't married to being the closer, and neither is the organization. That's basically an open admission. They're looking for someone else. Diaz would change everything. He's not just a good reliever. He's one of the most dominant closers we've seen in the last decade. Yes, he'll be 32 years old. Yes, 5 years is a long commitment for a reliever, but this isn't a normal situation. Most relievers are volatile. Most closers flame out or lose effectiveness suddenly. Diaz has been consistently elite, and coming off a season where he was basically unhittable, he's worth the investment. The Blue Jays made over $50 million in extra revenue from their playoff run, according to Bob Nightingale. That's money they didn't budget for, money that's sitting there waiting to be spent. If you are serious about winning, if you are serious about building a championship caliber roster, you use that money on impact player. Diaz is exactly that kind of player. Now let's talk about the trade that just happened because it has ripple effects across the entire offseason landscape. The Mets and Rangers finalized the deal, sending Marcus Semien to New York and Brandon Nimmo to Texas. This is shocking for multiple reasons. First, you almost never see one-for-one blockbuster trades anymore. Second, Nimmo was a Met his entire career and waived his no-trade clause to go to Texas, presumably because of the tax benefits and the chance to play for a contender. But here is what matters for Toronto. The Mets just acquired an infielder, which probably takes them out of the Bo Bichette sweepstakes. They got Semien locked in for multiple years at significant money, and they're clearly prioritizing defense over offense based on every report coming out of New York. Bo doesn't fit that profile. He's an offensive player who struggles defensively, and the Mets just spent big money to address their infield needs. That means one less serious suitor for Bo, which is good news for Toronto if they're trying to re-sign him. The competition is thinning out, and the Blue Jays can focus their negotiation without worrying about Steve Cohen throwing unlimited money at the problem. But here is the flip side. The Mets now have an outfield spot open with Nimmo gone, which puts them right back in the Kyle Tucker conversation. They've got the financial firepower to land a Tucker if they want him, and suddenly Toronto's competition for the best available outfielder just got a lot more serious. So where does that leave the Blue Jays? They're pursuing DAs aggressively, and the Mets stalling gives them a real chance. They're watching the Bo situation unfold with one less team in the mix, and they're still competing for Tucker. But now they know the Mets might pivot to outfield after addressing their infield. Everything is connected, and the front office needs to act fast because this market is starting to move. The bullpen has to be the priority. You can't go in the next season with the same questions about the back end of games. You can't rely on Hoffman alone when he's already shown cracks under postseason pressure. Adding Diaz gives you one of the most feared closers in baseball, someone who can shut down the ninth inning against anyone. That's not a luxury, that's a necessity. If you are serious about competing for a championship, there are other relievers available. Devin Williams is out there, Robert Suarez is an option, Ryan Helsley could be in play. But none of them have the track record and consistency of Edwin Diaz. He's the top reliever on the market, and yes, he's going to command a huge contract. But the Blue Jays have the money, they have the extra revenue from the playoffs, and they have a clear need that he fills perfectly. Beyond the bullpen, starting pitching remains a focus, and we know Toronto is exploring multiple options. But the bullpen might actually be more important because you can't win in October if you can't hold leads late in games. The best starting rotation in the world doesn't matter if your closer blows saves in the playoffs. We saw that firsthand this year. The other piece that's falling into place is the competitive landscape. With the Mets potentially out on Bo, Toronto has more leverage in those negotiations. With the Mets possibly shifting to outfield, Tucker becomes more complicated, but you always knew that was going to be a bidding war anyway. The key is recognizing where you have advantages and attacking those opportunities a grain now. The market is moving slowly overall, but when it breaks, it's going to break fast. Teams are positioning themselves, doing their background work, and waiting for the right moment. Toronto can't afford to wait too long because other teams are circling the same players. If the Mets truly are out on Diaz, you jump on that immediately. You don't hesitate. You don't wait to see if something better comes along. You close the deal and lock down one of the biggest needs on your roster. This is what aggressive off seasons look like. You identify your targets, you monitor the market, and when opportunities present themselves, you strike. The Blue Jays have done that before. They need to do it again now. The rotation needs help. The bullpen needs help. The lineup might need reinforcements depending on what happens with Bo. But the good news is the money is there, the targets are available, and the competition is thinning out in key areas. To glob your thoughts in the comments. Should the Blue Jays go all in on Edwin Diaz? Is 5 years too long for a closer, or is he worth the gamble? And what happens if the Mets pivot to Kyle Tucker? Make sure you subscribe because things are heating up fast, and you don't want to miss any of these updates as the offseason unfolds. This roster is being built right now, and the decisions made in the next few weeks will determine whether Toronto contends for a championship or falls short again.